Assalamualaikum and hi everyone. My name is Nabilah binti Azelan, ID MSc 201039. So today I'll be explaining about linear regression using Excel. So let's get started. First of all, we are given a set of data labeled as A, B, and C. From the data given, one thing that we are certain is the sample number, which is equal to 10. So let us go through the first question. Question 1 required us to predict the value of C from the dataset A when given the value of A equals to 33. So from this question, we can analyze that the variables used to predict the value of C is 1, and we can use a simple linear regression to predict the value. I have presented here the equation to find the value of Y, which is the value that we wanted to find. If we break down the question further, there are several components that we can see here. And if you highlighted the component, these are the component value that we need to find in order to predict the value of C. So let's first start with transferring all the components that we need to find into Excel. Now I have transferred all the components that we have highlighted just now into Excel. I also labeled our variable A as X and C as Y, and also the sample N equal to 10. The first thing that we can do as a first step is to find the sum of X and Y. So how to do this? In here, we can have the value of X and here the value of Y. So to find the sum of X, we can use the function sum, highlight the values, and press enter. The same process can be done to Y, which use the sum function, highlight the values, and press enter. So we can also find the average or mean of X and Y. So how to do this? We can use the value B17 here, B17, divide by our total samples, we equal to 10, and press enter. So we can get the average or mean of X. And here we can use the same process, which you see 17, divide by 10, and press enter. So we can get the average or mean of Y. Next is to find the values here. But before we find the value here, we have to find this component here first. So how to do this? The first column is X, Y. X times Y. So how to do this? We can do it by selecting the column B5, for example, and C5. So use the equal sign, select the row or columns that we want to calculate, B5, for example, times by C5. So we can get the value of X times Y for row 5. To have all the following rows to be calculated, we just have to drag the column here up until here, and the value will be calculated for you. Next is the component for X power of 2. So X power of 2 is the value here. We need the power of 2. So we can have the equal sign, the column name B5 power 2, and we can do the same step as just now. So the component below here is the summation of xy. So this column, we have to total up. And how to do this? Like the previous step, we use the sum function, select the values, and press enter. So the next component that we have to find is here. So we can select the value in B17 and also C17. So how to do this? B17 times by C17. Don't forget to put it in a bracket. And then divide by 10. So there you go. We get the value here. And for x power of 2, we have to calculate the total of x power of 2 as previous step. Use the sum function, select the values, and press enter. As for this component, you can find it through the value of x here in B17. So in bracket B17, 2, in bracket also, by 10 our sample. So we can have here the value. To find the B1, we have to substitute all this value here in the equation of B1. So let us substitute the value. So from the value that we have calculated just now in the Excel, we have to substitute into the equation here. So as you can see here, I have substitute all the values here in this equation. And this is the value that we got for B1. The next component is B0. So as we can see here is the equation of B0. We have here the mean of Y, value of B1, and also the mean of X. So we have calculated the mean of Y and also mean of X and B1 previously. So we have to just substitute all the values here, and we got the value for B0 equals to 32.08. To find the value of C, so we just have to use the equation here. We have calculated the value of B0 and B1 just now. So just have to substitute the values here into B0 and B1. And also the X, we have to use the value 33 here. So we can have the value of Y equals to 50.4 estimately. So in Excel, how do we find the value of B? As you can see here, we use the value from F18, G18, H18, and I18 to calculate the value of B1. As for B20, we use the value in C18, which is the average of Y, B20, the value of B1, times by B18, the average of X. So for the value of Y, we use the value from B21, the BO, B20, the B1, times with the value of given A equals to 33. So this is how we got the value of Y. And that's all for question 1. So let's move on to question 2. Now, let us go through the second question. Question 2 requires us to predict the value of C from dataset A and B when given the value of A equals to 22 and value of B equals to 44. From this question, we can analyze that the variable used to predict the value of C is 2. Therefore, we need to use the multiple linear regression to predict the value of C. I have presented here the equation to find the value of Y, which is the value that we wanted to find. I have also highlighted the component that we need to find in order to predict the value of C. So if we break down the equation further, there are several components, as you can see here, that we need to find, which is the value of A, the value of B1, component in B2, and the equation of B2. Before we start getting confused, let us transfer this component into Excel. Now, I have transferred all the components that we have highlighted just now into Excel. I have also labeled the variable A as x1, B as x2, and C as y. The first thing that we can do as a first step is to find the summation of x1, x2, and y. So let's find the value of x1, x2, and y. To find the summation, as previous step, we use the function of sum, highlight the values, and press enter. Same with x2, y. Another component that we can find is the average or mean. So we can find the average or mean of x1, x2, and y. So to do this, we use the component of B20, divide by 10, our sample. Same goes to x1 and y. First, let's settle this column. So to do this, use B7 minus average of x1, which is 40.4. We need to highlight the 40.4 because if we do take the column like B21, it will change the column here. So all we need to do is to fix the number for average value. So to do that again, we need to select the column for the value of x1, P7 minus the average, which is a fixed one. And then we can drag down all the way here to find the values. So as you can see here, the only variable that changed is the value of x1. Next, we will do for this column. Now, let's settle for this column. We can make use of this column in order to find the value. So how to do this? For example, C7 power up by 2. Drag down all the way in order to find for each rows. Do the same for x2 and y. So before we proceed to this column, let's have a look at here. So here we need to have the sum of this column. So all we need to do is use the sum function, sum of this column. And then same goes to this column, use the sum function, this column, and for y also. So now we move on to this column. First column is x1 times by y. So to find this value, we will need to have this value times by this value. So how to do this? Equals to B7 times J7. And then drag all the way down here to find all the rows. Do the same for this column. And then for x1 times x2. And then another component that we need to settle is this component. To find the first column here, we use the sum function, select the values, and then we have the value there. Secondly, repeat the same steps, select the value, and remember that we have a special equation for these components. Let's get back to our slide. So these are the equations that we need to use in order to find x1y, x2y, and x1 and x2. Before that, let us substitute the values that we have calculated in the Excel into the equation. This is the value calculated as I have substituted in the equation. So for B1, we get the value of 0.455. Now this one is the value that we have calculated from here and substitute into the equation of x1y, x2y, and x1 and x2. From the value, we transfer into equation of B2. So we got the value of negative 0.187. Next is to find the component of A. So we use all the component that we have calculated just now into the A component. So the final value of A is 41.83. In order to find Y, all we need to do is to substitute all the value that we have calculated just now. These are the final values. So substitute all the values into the equation here. Meanwhile, the x1 and x2 is substituted by 22 for x1 and 44 for x2. So the final value of y, which is the value of c that we have to predict, is 43.6. So let's see how all these final components here to be calculated in Excel. So to find all the values here, we make use all this value that we have calculated here. For example, for this value, we make use of n20, the value of x1 times y, in order to find the value of x1, y. For x2, we make use the value of O20, F20, J20. So for this component, we make use of P20, which is the value of x1 times x2. Next, for B1, we make use of several components such as D20, H20, B24, B25, and also B26 in order to find the value of B1. Next, for B2, we make use of D20, H20, B24, B25, and B26. In order to find A, we make use of these two components, B1 and B2. And for the component Y, we make use of the value in B27, B28, and B29, and also substituting the value of x1 and x2 here. So that's how we find the value of C using multiple regression when the given value of A equals to 22 and B equals to 44 in Excel. With that, that's all from me. Till we meet again, thank you.